Welcome to Make Your Own Fun. I am here with poet Jazmine Cartwright, and she's the author of such collections as Upgrade, Rebirth, and the forthcoming Awakening. Welcome to the show.
Hello, it's so nice to meet you and be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, I am so excited that we were able to make this work. You are all the way in England, so let me um, ask this question first, because I'm sure people are going to be curious. Where in England are you located?
So I'm in a little village called Northamptonshire. We have a lot of villages here. So it's very small and quaint. Everyone knows each other, but it's lovely.
What would you say the closest large city is?
Probably Northampton.
Okay,
Yeah.
excellent.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Okay, so this is going to be a fun one for you. What is your favorite type of time machine? Do you have a movie or
Um,
a show or a certain kind of thing?
I don't actually know. The only one I can think of is oh, now you put me on the spot because I don't really watch this sort of stuff.
Well, you've got like, Back to the Future, you've got,
That's the only one I could think of. Yeah.
okay,
That's the only one I can think of.
fair enough. So let's hop back in your Wayback Machine of choice and let the folks know when you were younger, what your first experience was or exposure was to poetry.
Well, so I was brought up with my grandparents, and they're a little bit, older. They promoted reading books a bit more. So they would often take me to like charity shops, and we would get secondhand books. So I was very big onto poetry from a very young age,
Do you
from as
remember
soon as
that
I
there
could
was like a
read.
particular book or a poem that when you first read it, it kind of, where you were enamored with? It could be even something like Shel Silverstein or, something like Dr. Seuss.
I really liked Benjamin Zephaniah.
Wow.
And also A.A. Milne. I believe that's the person who wrote Winnie the Pooh. They wrote a lot of poetry as well. And they were in books like When We Were Very Young and Now We're Six and When We Were Very Young and that sort of stuff. So I found a lot of older poetry.
Okay, fair enough. Do you remember maybe attempting to write something like that when you were that age? I feel like everybody kind of starts with the rhyme scheme stuff and couplets, and so I'm kind of curious to pick your brain about that.
The first poem I wrote wasn't rhyming, and I still don't
Ooh.
rhyme. I'd rhyme a little bit, but it wasn't anything like a proper poem. I remember it was about brushing my hair. It was really simple, and I was very, very young, and it was more of a song than a poem, but I thought I'd have a go.
I feel like we all kind of have that kind of thing where we hear so many nursery rhymes and so many,
Yeah,
oh my God, so many commercial jingles, I think, in
yeah,
children's
definitely.
television shows and programs that it's just like we can't help it when we're that age because it's coming in and out of our brains. It's just kind of what we're exposed to. I would love
Definitely.
it if you would be so kind is to share a poem with the folks, if you have
I
one.
can do. Do you like cats or dogs? Just curious.
I am a fan of either one.
Okay, there's a lot of cat poems.
Okay.
Um, but there's one in particular. This is from one of my books. This is the second book called Rebirth. This is called Cats at 2 a.m. You can just imagine where this is going. Okay. Bottle tops, plastic bags, anything that moves. Paper towels, big meows. They'll scurry across the room. Terrible twos, a pair of them, in your favorite shoes. Curtains are an obstacle course. The fish tank is a pool. In the bath, out the bath. Why are they so loud? Up the stairs, then down the stairs. They'll scratch the chair every hour. Lick your face and smell your hair. Wiggling toes for prey. On your back with claws and that. In every inch of your skin. You're waking up and then drifting off until you hear them galloping.
Great. Yeah, I don't know what it is about cats that when you're asleep, suddenly they're like kamikaze pilots or something. They just get this mad energy drink rush,
I
and
know.
they like, why is it between like 1 a.m. and like 5 a.m. that is their prime time to go and jump off furniture, crawl up curtains? Like, you ever been to a house, maybe your own place, where it's like you go to sleep and everything, kind of like the Radiohead song, everything is in your right, in its right place, and then you wake up and you're like, what,
What
what,
happened?
I, what, and the cat's just there, like, just completely
There's been
docile.
times.
Yeah,
There's been times where I've gone in the kitchen. I'm like, did I get robbed last night?
you're like,
And the cats are like,
the cats are like, that's great. Food in the bowl, please.
yeah, you're like 30 seconds late.
Although I have had friends tell me that either with, smaller dogs like puppies or with kittens, there's that thing of like you turn the light switch on at the exact right moment, and the dog or the cat is kind of like, I, they just freeze and the light comes on and they're like, it was him. I know there's no one else here, but it was, I mean, obviously, I know what this looks like, but meow, and then just walk away.
There was a study and they said that cats apparently get embarrassed. Like if they try and jump off something and they miss, they like immediately start grooming themselves because they're
They're like,
embarrassed.
yeah, well, I meant to do that. Um, so let me ask you this. So going back to when you were younger, because we all get exposed to these things, usually like lessons in school, was there any type of form writing that you had to be subjected to that turned you off from either that particular assignment or just writing in general for a while, going like, this is not what I want to do. I feel boxed in. You know what I mean?
I think it was when I was at school in English, we had to write, I believe it was a sonnet about Christmas. And sonnets are very, they're love poems. There's a certain way. And at that time, I love it now, but at that time I hated Christmas. So I wrote a sonnet about how much I hate Christmas just to be different. Um, and yeah, that didn't go down well. It
Right. Oh my
was
gosh.
a great poem, but it was
But I
in
mean,
form.
sometimes
So
that,
technically,
that does kind of equate to a form of verbal rebellion almost, I think, when you're younger or like a teenager, where um, it's kind of like, oh, you're gonna make me do this? Well, you may not enjoy the results. You just,
well,
bulldoze
I
your,
love the poetry, but
right. You
yeah,
just
you
bulldoze your
love
way
writing,
through
but
and yeah, you get
hmm,
through it. Yeah, I think there were certain things I remember being younger, like this is a palindrome, and I'm going, and because I think when you're living your life and you're going through your experiences and you're trying to just get it out of you onto a page, it's really hard to fit it into these cookie cutter kind of shapes. And it's one thing if you're doing like an E. Cummings thing where you're trying to make it look like a shape on a page or something that,
they
okay,
are
that's
amazing.
fun, where like the art of it is to make it look like a shape. I get that. But, um, some of these things, and it's like when I was younger reading Shakespeare too, which whether you currently believe that was one man or a committee of people, who's to say, um, I appreciated it for what it was, this beautiful art. And I think that with his plays in particular, they were meant to be read aloud because reading them on a page is dull, dreary, and I feel like I should be drinking Earl Grey tea in a rainstorm.
Yeah,
But I
it's definitely
appreciated it.
performative.
Yeah, it's like, okay, this is not my cup of tea, but I appreciate it for what it was. And it kind of made me realize I don't have to do that. I'm sure when you read these things too, when you were younger, you're like, okay, well, this is great, and I appreciate it for what it is, but I'm going to kind of do my own thing. So
For sure.
I did I did do some investigating and some research on your website, and I know you've had open mic experiences, and I would love
I
to hear
have.
an open mic experience from you where maybe it was a place you hadn't been before, and did you ever feel like you were up on a stage
Yeah,
or at a mic, maybe at a coffee shop or something, cafe, where it's just felt like you were just reading for your own enjoyment, where everybody else was just,
definitely.
let me hear
Yes.
it.
Okay, so I don't know about other places, but where I particularly perform is called Leicester. It's a city around here, and I used to live there, so it's just great to perform. We tend to have open mic nights, and we tend to have poetry nights. You know, they're very different. Um, and I went to an open mic night, and they've got you singing, you've got your live music. You know, I was the only poet there. People didn't like poetry. I was put on pretty much the last person to perform, and everyone's drunk at this point. Um, so trying to perform with a microphone on a stage where everyone's drunk and laughing and chatting, like 11 o'clock at night, 12 o'clock, whatever, it just didn't get heard. You know, the people that was running it, they was trying to shush everyone, and it just, no, it was a waste of time. And I think that's the only time I felt like, what am I doing? Like, why am I here? There's no point. And it did knock me a little bit. And when I had to perform again in the future, I was a bit nervous, but I'm glad it happened because you need those experiences to learn. So it's a bit of
I
a
agree.
downer.
I agree 100%. And I think that one of those things that it teaches us as we get older is to kind of thicken our skin because once you have that experience, then you know how to deal with it. If you haven't had it, you don't know what you're up against. So you just know for open mics, at least in the United States, some of them do incorporate music, some of them do incorporate stand-up comedy. You're never going to be louder than a musician who's got an amplification. It's just
Exactly.
not possible. And most poets, I wouldn't say everybody, don't have the tenacity or the wherewithal to do crowd work like a stand-up
Mm,
comedian would. You're either just I don't know how people read from phones. To me, it's like I've seen YouTube videos and I'm just going like, can you just but
yeah.
reading from a piece of paper, and I can tell people get nervous and the page shakes as they're reading it. But I've never been one to memorize. Have you memorized your poems at open mics?
Yes. I've got some good friends that, have taught me along the way, and they give me two rules. Don't read off a phone and try and learn your poems, at least a little bit of them. And it's difficult with the second book because it's fairly new. But the poems that you enjoy performing, when you learn them, you can make eye contact with the crowd, and it's so much more relaxing because you can see people smiling and nodding, and it's like this relationship that you build with the audience, and it's really nice. So I prefer, reading when I know the poem because it's just like more relaxing.
I think so.
So
I
yeah,
think so.
definitely.
Have you ever had oh God, and I've had this experience, so maybe you've had it too. Years ago, I'm trying to remember where I was. I think somewhere in the Pacific Northwest, and I just wanted to try out an open mic. And of course, I didn't know ahead of time going. I just was there, and I just kind of wandered in. I didn't really know what I was getting into. And it was one of those events where, yes, they did have musicians, and yes, they did have comedians, and I was trying out some new work, and it was just really vulnerable, just spilling my guts and just a completely dead and different room.
Mm,
And I talked to the guy later about it. I know he had the best intentions, but it was like a two-page poem, and I'm just turning over, sometimes you read the poems that are like,
yeah,
okay, section two, section three, whatever. You're going to these
yeah.
different tiers of, and this guy hops up behind me with an acoustic guitar, and I didn't know I was reading, and as soon as he started strumming, he leaned in behind me and he goes, "It's okay, man. I got you." And I was like, and so he started trying to put in some mood music, maybe, I don't know, for the poem. And then I was kind of rattled and I was trying to, oh God, get to the end of it. And then he heard me pick up the pace of my performance. So then he starts strumming faster. And I thought, oh my God, this is like a Monty Python skit from hell. This is just keeps it was just one of those. And I talked to him later and I was like, you know what? I appreciate it. I thought maybe you thought I was drowning up there, and that's fine. I was dying a death or whatever. But if I'm ever here again, just let me go, just because whatever you did just
Mm.
superseded and killed whatever mood I was setting. And he goes, right on. And I never saw it. But it was just so bizarre. Have you ever had anybody interrupt or heckled or anything like that of a performance? Not anything in particular.
No, I don't think I have.
I don't want to wish that
Oh, the
upon you,
connection's
but
gone.
it is a fun story if
The
you ever.
connection's jumping. No, I don't think I've had anything like that.
Okay, well, I don't wish that upon you. So if you have another poem you'd like to share, I'm sure the folks would love to hear it.
So that's good. Oh, this one's a fun one.
Okay.
This is called I Need a Wee. Uh, this is true as well. Water haunts my ears and my lips. No smell, no taste, an adult drink. But I've brought a new bottle to trick my brain. It has the straw to stop it being mundane. I gulp and I swallow like a hamster in a cage, with an upside down straw guzzling it down with rage. Then, at the end of a water filled day, I collapse into bed and drown in my duvet, closing my eyes and feeling super proud until the fish tank next to my pillow drips and drops so loud. After I drank the recommended amount, I sigh, get up, and I piss it all out. There you
Wow,
go.
that
There's
was
that one.
great. I do want to let you know
Thank you.
I'm hoping you can see me that your video, I can hear your audio, but your video has a little bit of a lag. I don't know if you can tell that or not.
Oh, you too.
Oh,
I
I
can
think
see
it's just the
you, and
distance.
I can
I
hear you,
think,
but it's the same.
okay. Just
I
wanted
think
to,
it's your connection.
okay. All right. Okay. So moving along, was
Hmm.
there a poem or a particular poem or a book that you read, and you said to yourself, oh, damn, I really wish I would have written that. That is exactly how I feel about that particular subject.
No, not at all. And that's probably quite a surprising answer.
That's okay. I mean, you
Probably,
never know. I mean, maybe you just haven't run across that thing in some cafe or some independent bookstore where you just open it and you were like, you know, the proverbial light, shines down on the book and it's like, oh, but
I
um,
think there's books that I've read and I'm like, wow, that's amazing. Like I love their work. But I try to avoid books, especially poetry books that touch on stuff that I've been through. Um, it's probably a bit different to other people, but I feel like every journey is unique and you may, get help from other people and books, but I feel like to really succeed in life, you need to listen to yourself and work things solo sometimes. So I'm all for helping each other, but I think sitting in a dark room with your thoughts is going to be just as useful.
I agree. That's a great answer. Well, here's one for you that I was thinking about literally 30 minutes ago. Um, has music or social media influenced your writing style, do you think?
Yes, on a positive way, not a negative way. Um, I think a lot of support, especially in the poetry community, I don't know about other people, but the people that I've met online, the poets, we just want to support each other. If there's any questions that we have or we're unsure about something, you could probably go to a stranger who is a poet and message them, and probably 90% you get a good supportive response and helpful response.
Mhm.
So I think we all encourage each other, monthly prompt, and they're like, oh, let's do a different poem every day, and this is the topic. And we share them all on social media, and it's just really good and encouraging. So I think it's helped for the best. Yeah,
So you have kind of like an online or an in-person community of friends who are also writers, and you guys bandy back and forth ideas and prompts. That's great.
definitely. Yeah, it's really helpful. I think the online people are different to the in-person people, but just supporting each other, it's really nice. So if I could
I am happy to hear that you
give any advice to people starting out.
right. although I am happy to hear that you do go out to the open mics, you do go to the poetry readings, because I think that I feel like the books are, as a writer, the books are our arrival. They, chart our progress, so to speak, every couple of years when we put out a book or something. But
Mm.
I feel like the open mics and the readings are really, the down in the dirty, in the trenches, kind of like this is where you grow, this is where you learn, this is what you learn to do and not do. Because
Mm.
there is an art to that. There is an art to a
Yeah,
presentation, to um, I mean, I still get nervous standing up in front of a crowd of people, and I've been doing
me
it for
too.
a while. But you know
Mm.
what? Sometimes that's great, because I think if you can relay that to somebody at a microphone at a podium and say like, okay, I wasn't going to read this poem because I think it's dog shit, but it's brand new and it's not finished. People are like, just read it, and you just like,
Exactly.
fine, fine, fine. You might as well be at a
Fine.
you might as well be at a pub tossing a few back. Well, if
Definitely.
you would like to share a third poem, I would definitely want to hear that if
Yeah.
you have one.
Okay. The first two were quite positive. This one's quite the opposite.
The
But I think it's good to
non-positive, positive poem.
the sad poem. But it's okay. It's called Ghostly Shadows, and it's just a little backstory. I don't, I might as well just say it. Like both of my parents have passed away.
Hmm.
So it's been really tough, but it's been really good for writing poetry. So there is positives towards losing people, but it's about that. So I will
Okay.
just read. I still see you both, even though you are no longer here. When I wake up, rub my eyes, and look in a mirror, I see you looking back at me. My dad's nose, mum's hair, the same stare when we concentrate. And I look down at my rings, seeing family members' gifts placed over my fingertips, sitting comfortably, like a family, together watching TV. And I see what we could have been in a coffee shop, sipping tea, laughing over silly things, happy as can be. But we never had those things when you were alive. We never sat down all together at the dinner table, talking about our day, waiting for the food to arrive. You weren't there to collect me after school, so where were you? I see more of you both now that you are gone, haunting my memories, recognizing you through scents and songs, talking to people with the same name as you, receiving presents with your faces, and hearing, I'm sorry for your losses, your broken record. Amazed that I can't escape. These deaths will not define who I am and my plans in life. Thank you for the memories, but it's time for me to move on.
I think that is probably my favorite of the three so far.
Really?
Yeah, I just think that we all can relate on losing people in our
Definitely.
life, and not just how it affects us, but how the loss and our demeanor changes. And so that also affects our relationships with the people that we still have in our life, you know?
Definitely, definitely. Yeah, I mean, people that know me before the deaths and after the deaths, they say I am a completely different person. And I think you've just got to accept that, it's not something you can necessarily control, but it's something you can work on and accept and use to help in the future. So, yeah, definitely taught me a lot of life lessons.
And I think that from what I read and what I can tell anyway, that you seem to have been able to process everything positively and channel
Mm.
it into your art rather than rage against the night and drive drunk and make bad
Yeah,
choices and
no,
things like that, So I'm
no,
really
definitely
happy that
not.
you went that way with it. So this is a fun question for writers. Going
Yeah.
back to kind of to the beginning, with the time machine, what bygone civilization would you like to go back to and visit in person and then write about after you've seen how people live and how things were?
Ooh, that's my fault.
So you were saying you were going back to Elizabethan times in the late
Yeah.
1500s, early 1600s to kind of see Shakespeare's plays performed. And I was saying that I would really like to go to, I guess, Istanbul, but then go and see Constantinople in its prime as the cultural hub of civilization, just because there were so many things, coming through that city, and it was
Mm,
such a nexus point. Because
definitely.
I'm just gonna make a little white man angry historian gripe, which is like, I just wish we would just call them Romans because that's what they were. Anyway, okay. So I have to ask you this because this relates back to the social media thing too. But
Okay.
um, and this is personal opinion on your part, but who do you think writes better breakup poems, men or women? And let's keep Taylor Swift out of the conversation.
Ooh. Probably men because, right, this might be controversial.
Okay, go
Okay.
ahead.
I feel like women, we are run on our emotions. I'm one to put my hand up for that. But men, they take things very much as it comes. They will say, this is what happened. Whereas a woman will say, this is what happened. It made me feel like this, and that person, that person, that person. And they tend to uh blow things out of proportion slightly. I do it, I will admit to it. But I feel like men will say, this is what happened, and then. So I feel like probably men.
Interesting. I was going to kind of say that I feel like with the poetry from women about relationship breakups, it's more emotive and more just really, just to boil it down to brass tacks, just like I really, 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 really feel like this, and it's very emotive. And men seem to be just wounded, like obsessed, like
Definitely.
carrying a torch, like Wuthering Heights kind of stuff, like the forlorn thing, but like looking from a distance and being like, she used to be mine or whatever. And the women are just, I mean, and from my experience, the things I read and heard read, just like, I really, really, really feel this. I mean, that's just,
Definitely. No,
different
it's
points of
true.
view.
I've always preferred male poets, full stop, um,
Okay.
which is interesting. But yeah, I think it's probably more of a me thing, but I do like male poets preferably.
Have you ever listened to any music by Joni Mitchell?
I haven't, no.
I recommend it because her lyrics are amazing.
Okay.
So let's see here. I guess we'll just as we wrap it up, what is coming up next for you and where can people find your work online?
Okay, there is lots of things coming up for me because most poets procrastinate, and we'll start one thing and get back to that in 7 working days because we started several other things. So, I'm writing book number 3, which is part of my trilogy. It will be called Awakening. It is a lot more, uh, less feelings, more self-development poetry. And I'm also hoping to start classes, maybe online classes, on how to self-publish your own poetry books. So that will be fun. And you can find my work on Amazon, or you can just head over to my Instagram for everything, which is support your local poet. Um, because I think that's important.
Would you like people to be funneled toward a website or more towards your Instagram?
Preferably my Instagram because I'm a I'm a people person. You can see the personality through the Instagram, whereas websites and Amazon, they're just very formal. I'm an informal person. You can just drop me a DM.
Okay. Well, before we head out the proverbial door, would you care to share one last short poem before we wrap it up here?
Oh, I can. What, one of my poems or
Yeah, yeah, anything you want. If you want to read your poem, you want to read someone else's poem, you want to invent a poem.
okay. Um, oh, all of a sudden I don't like my work. Hang
Oh,
on.
God.
Okay, we'll go on the first book.
Okay.
This is Upgrade. This is called A Fresh New Book. Fingertips caressing a brand new book, slowly teasing the cover away like it's a striptease. This very normal moment of buying a new book feels like a naughty secret. You have books at home that plead and beg to be read, but this new book has a spine that caves in under your touch, peeling that front cover back and inhaling its intoxicating, addictive scent. But that fresh new book isn't as sexy when you get it home, opening its pages on a freshly made bed and reading every word of the first page that you will never finish. The build up no longer builds up. It's not you, it's me, a short lived love, and the cycle begins again.
Thank you. That was very
Thank
eloquent.
you.
Well, I wanted to thank you so much for the spur of the moment Saturday interview, and this will
Thank you for
appear.
having me.
Yeah, you were fantastic. This is wonderful. And the finished video will be up on the channel on Wednesday the 14th. Thank you so much for stopping by, Jasmine. I hope you enjoy what's
Thank
left of your
you.
Saturday night in England.
Bedtime.
Okay. Thank you so
Thank you so
much.
much for having me.
Yeah, have a
See you
great
later.
weekend. Bye.
You too. Bye.